You've probably heard the very well-meaning phrase, trust your gut, which honestly is a great piece of advice for somebody who does not have OCD. When you have OCD, it can be very hard to distinguish what's your gut and what's your OCD. For most people who don't have OCD, the emotional instinct of trusting your gut can actually be very helpful when making decisions. It's your intuition. It's based on your experiences, your values, your body signals, which that is all completely fair. But here's the problem for people like us who have OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder basically creates doubt when there literally shouldn't be any. It hijacks your thoughts and then it attaches fear to things that you really care about or that you value or that you morally believe. It makes you feel like if you don't act on this fear, then something bad is going to happen. So you have to give it to people who have OCD because honestly, like, we're not ones to just sit around. We take action, you know? We take matters into our own hands for the wrong reasons and for zero result and only to hurt ourselves, but we're still doing something. Then we self-soothe through compulsions, which is where you get an intrusive thought or an intrusive feeling, and then we try to cancel it out, and that's where our actions or mental rituals or routines come in. They can start literally becoming ingrained in us, where I used to do them like habitually, like to the point where if I just felt wrong, I would need to continuously do the compulsion until it felt right. So I remember one time I was walking back and forth through a doorway. I can't even tell you how long it was for, but the only reason I stopped was because I was crying so hard that I physically couldn't stand anymore. Which, it's not funny, I was laughing, but it was not funny. Another intrusive thought might be like if you're scared of an intruder coming in. Somebody without OCD might go check the locks just to make sure everything's okay and then go straight to bed. Somebody with OCD, multiple rounds, multiple times, checking the oven, checking the doors, checking the windows, taking up hours of your day, of your time. Like, OCD is the biggest time waster, which honestly is why I think, like, time wasting for me is such a big pet peeve of mine. That is actually another huge misconception of somebody with OCD. It's like, you know, you're type A, right? Oh, you must have OCD. I can see that because you're so on time all the time. A huge symptom of OCD is actually not being on time because our compulsions and our rituals and routines take up so much of our time, so much of our brain space that we physically feel like we're in a loop that just never freaking ends, that we're constantly late to things. And everyone for some reason associates being punctual in type A with OCD, even though like it's the complete opposite. So if you have scrupulosity OCD, let's say, like myself, your gut might be telling you that you are not a good person. Or it could be telling you that you've done something wrong and that you need to figure out what it is. And as much as that might feel like an intuition or like an instinct, because it does feel like there's something very eerie or ominous or wrong about that feeling and it's so strong, but it turns out almost every single time that it's just our disorder. So telling somebody with OCD to trust their gut is very similar to telling somebody to trust a faulty fire alarm that goes off multiple times throughout the day, even when there's no fire. That is the metaphor that I would like to use because honestly, that is the closest representation that I can have for describing trusting your gut with OCD. It's actually awful because you feel broken because you don't know what to listen to or what's true. You can't even trust yourself because you have a faulty fire alarm inside of you. So if you can't trust yourself, like who can you trust? It just makes life very, very difficult, very, very lonely, and very scary. Intrusive thoughts, intrusive feelings, intrusive images, that is not proof that something's wrong. It's proof that something feels wrong, and that is not the same thing. Just because you feel something doesn't mean something bad's gonna happen. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. The problem with OCD is because our bodies react so strongly to these intrusive thoughts, it makes it incredibly difficult to ignore or avoid or do exposures for, because why would our bodies be reacting this way if there was not danger present? That's not how it works in our brains. It's not how it works. There has to be a reason for this. And even if there's no reason, but it's astronomically difficult to give yourself relief, which is why, once again, we use so many compulsions to self-soothe. As somebody who's been doing exposure and response prevention therapy for like 8 years now, I've had such a long mental health journey with so many ups and so many downs. I still to this day question what's my gut, what's my intuition versus what's my obsessive compulsive disorder. It's something I still go back and forth between. I have been able to like lean on my gut and my intuition a bit more, but I still to this day would never follow it blindly. So honestly, like instead of trusting my gut wholeheartedly, I'm more so trusting my values, trusting my morals, trusting recovery, trusting my rational mind. What are the facts? What is true? What can I believe? What can I rely on? Instead of trying to comprehend and rely on the brain that has been so faulty throughout my entire life. Now I'm in a spot where I almost more so go back and ask for advice or learn from my previous experience and take knowledge from those situations and bring it forward instead of kind of relying on, once again, my intuition. I don't necessarily go on what I think will happen anymore. I kind of base my decisions on what has happened in the past. Honestly, ERP has helped me to create more of an open mind. Like, my first thought is no longer the fact. That is what it is. My first impression of somebody, that is not just who they are. There are so many different reasons why you could be thinking the thoughts that you're thinking in the moment that you're thinking them. You have thousands of thoughts coming at you a day, and you're just going to believe the random one that just came in at that moment at that time because you're scared of it, or it came in really strongly or stronger than the others. I technically don't meet any requirements to have OCD. Thank you, ERP therapy. Genuinely saved my entire life. I used to have compulsions that would take up my entire day. Like, I honestly could not go a few minutes without doing some sort of compulsion, whether that was mental or physical, because it controlled the way I walked, I blinked, I breathed, you name it. Every single part of me was affected with OCD. It obviously does not mean that I don't still have OCD. I basically look for opportunities for exposure therapy every single day of my life, but there are multiple days where I genuinely do not experience any OCD symptoms, or I don't notice them anyway, which is saying a lot considering your girl was in a mental hospital 8 years ago because of obsessive compulsive disorder. And I'm saying that because I've noticed whenever I'm trying to trust my gut, if I notice that I'm becoming more symptomatic, like if my OCD is becoming a little more intense than it normally is, if that happens, I typically start having alarm bells that my OCD is trying to interfere with my gut. And that is when I, open it up to the peanut gallery, whether that's my therapist, my friends, my family, or I get my advice more so from them and reflect openly with them instead of trying to make the decision based on how I'm feeling. Because once again, if I'm becoming more symptomatic, it's a lot harder to trust what I'm feeling, if it's true or not. What will happen is I'll just really dissect the situation instead of, once again, blindly going with it. It's not necessarily about not trusting your gut when you're in recovery, but it's more so about analyzing the situation and asking for help if you need it. It is honestly, to me, the most confusing element of OCD in my 8-year recovery process of what's my gut, what's my OCD. Once again, to this day, still sometimes can't tell the difference. This is where a therapist is so impactful and so helpful, because obviously, your friends and your family, as much as they love and care about you and want to help you and want to support you, they don't know how the OCD brain works. And you know what? When you have OCD, sometimes trusting your gut is just not a luxury we're able to have, especially not at all times. Definitely not at all times. So that's why having other tools that we're able to use during these times are so important and can be very impactful for your just recovery journey. If you are somebody that is struggling with OCD, please go to NOCD.com. You can learn so much more about the disorder. You can also book a free consultation call with them. Getting help for your OCD is going to be the best thing that you've ever done in your entire life, and I can say that as a promise because it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I was in a spot where I felt like I didn't even really have a life. I always say I'm exposure and response prevention therapy, it didn't give me my life back. It gave me a life that I genuinely never thought would be possible. I do not say that lightly, and I mean that with my entire heart and my entire soul. It is the best thing that I have ever done. It's also one of the hardest and most rewarding things I've ever done. What it gave me is strength to start trusting myself and trusting my brain, and to be able to sometimes even trust my gut and go with my intuition, which is something that I never thought that I'd ever be able to do, truly. It's also so important to get a proper licensed OCD therapist, because there are so many misconceptions about OCD. OCD is constantly misdiagnosed. If you are not with a therapist that specializes in OCD and ERP treatment, you could be making your OCD symptoms worse, which is something that I had no idea about until I was hospitalized in 2017. So yeah, go to NOCD.com and start your recovery journey today. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.